So I can't really give you an awful lot on this drum, or at least the background of this line. Anyway, it's a bit like the Ochiltree tree bronze. I've kind of have known about these drums for an awful long time, but I just don't know why. Apparently, I did read, I think, that Modern Drummer had talked about them about 30 odd years ago, but I couldn't find it in my quick look through. So I couldn't find an awful lot in general about these, to be honest. But other than people really like the sound, and a lot of people seem to think they're quite rare, even though I found quite easily a whole bunch of them that have been sort of sold within the last 2 years. But hey, as you'll have seen anyway, it's the Ayotte Keplinger 14 by 5.5. I can't really do the usual sort of spin round photos or whatever, but I will go over all the individual components in a moment. But I got this drum I got it into 2019 from Steve Maxwell, and I was just sort of flipping through Reverb, and I came across it, and it said make an offer, so I made an offer that I thought was fairly reasonable. And you know, when you translate it into sterling, it's even more reasonable. But anyway, so I bought it, and unexpectedly it turned up in a case, which was rather nice. I wasn't expecting that. But you know, it takes about a week and a half, 2 weeks to get over here. So you know, in the meantime, I just went back on to have a look through, and lo and behold, I came across the advert again. I thought, that's a bit bloody cheeky. They've not taken it down. They're still putting it out for sale. Turns out they had 2 of them. Who knew? But you know, as I said, it turned up, and I, you know, I think this was the drum, actually, one of the drums I mentioned in, I think it was like my favourite snare drum head choices or something video, where it turned out with Remo heads on it, and it just wasn't really sort of happening for me. So I eventually put the Evans heads that are on here on. So there's a UV1 on the top, and a 300 snare side on the bottom. But you know, it was one of those drums, as I said, I just tried it with about 3 or 4 different batter heads on it. Wasn't really happening. There was this sort of big woof sort of sound every time you hit it, which isn't necessarily a terrible thing. It means that the drum's got a little bit of character and you know, something to it. But and it's not something you couldn't EQ out either. But it was actually oddly enough, it was very present in the room at the time as well. So anyway, I changed them out, and I mean the sort of woofiness is still there a little bit, but not nearly as much. But the drum itself, 10 lug drum, and as I said, I'll do a little bit of a close up in a minute. But as I said, I don't really know an awful lot about these drums. I've always known of the name Ayotte. Ever since I really started playing. The lugs on here are very typical of, I don't know if they're still like this, but they're very typical of the Ayotte drums of the sort of 90s, and I think maybe early 2000s as well. I mean, this drum is at least 20 years old, I think. That much I sort of could you know, gather. But it's a steel shell, 3mm thick. Now it is rolled. For those of you that are particularly interested in that sort of thing, and the joint, whether you be able to see it or not, the joint is actually right under the centre of the snare wire sort of plate there. So obviously I'm now using 2 hands because this isn't the lightest of drums, so I can't really point it out, but it is straight under the snare wires. And it's a little grubby, so you can sort of see it. But you know, I suppose with all this metal on it, it is quite a heavy drum. It's not in sort of cast bronze territory, but you know, it's heavy enough, and it's heavier than sort of the average 5.5. So you know, all in all, not really too much of a surprise there. So first of all, you've got the lug design. Now the lug design, this is very Ayotte. At least this is the very Ayotte that I know. I think I said I'm not really that au fait with you know, their lug design or their drums really. I think I've only ever played one kit, and that was their sort of like I can't even remember what they called it. Like their version of the sort of to-go kit, you know, the sort of very portable kit, and that was well over a decade ago. So that's about the only time I've ever played their drums, to be honest. And even then, that was in a shop. But you know, anyway, look, the lug design. This is basically what you would call a quick release. And so if you loosen, I'm not going to do it because obviously I've just tuned the damn thing up. But if you loosen the tension rod off a little bit, basically you'll be able to. It comes out there, so you can change the head a little bit quicker. So that's cool. You've got this. I don't know really what you would call this. It's not a washer or anything. It's just like a little plastic sort of block, really. You know, I mean, I suppose it's one of those things you don't really notice it that much until you notice it. But yeah, and the other thing that you've got, which to be honest, I haven't done these up. In fact, if I turn the drum round, you'll be able to see them there, won't you? So you've got these little sort of Allen key bolts here, and let's see if we can just sort of zoom in a little bit. There you go. You can sort of see it. So they're sort of Allen key bolts, and basically, I think I've not done it, as I said, but basically tighten those up, and it will stop all this from moving. So while we're here, you've got the butt plate. I mean, that's very, very sort of well, you know, dull and uninteresting, but you know, at the end of the day, it works. And you've got an air hole just underneath there as well. So, like obviously I mentioned the lugs already. You can kind of see what I was talking about, though. You can see the move it around. Yeah, you can see where the hoop is there underneath. It's kind of nicely recessed into that. So that sits on there. This because this isn't a Keplinger, it doesn't have not fragile stamped on inside, but it does have the you know, let's put that so it's not quite in the light. Oh, there you go. I think that's better, isn't it? So you'll be able to see that. So it does say Keplinger on it. And like I said, it's 3mm thick steel shell. The throw off is interesting because that is now on and that is off. I can't really say I'm thrilled with the aesthetic, but you know, at the end of the day, it does work. So you know, this the thumb wheel bit, it's actually got some rubber or sort of O-rings on it, really. But I've not had any problems with it. As I said, aesthetically, it's not the prettiest thing for me, but it's fairly stiff, which I guess is probably a good thing. Stops any movement, really. What else do we want to talk about? I suppose, I mean, that's kind of it for the shell. I mean, the shell itself is in decent nick. I mean, given it's, you know, I'm gonna round this off to at least probably 25 years old, but I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. It's give or take, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was a little older than that. It's you know, apart from it could do with a bit of a cloth on it. Came to me with the pure sounds on, which is fine. Now, I don't really know the best way. I don't know if there's like a drum builder's way of saying this, because I'm not a drum builder, obviously. But I kind of call this a sort of a straight wall design on the inside of the shell, because basically there's no flange as you get with a lot of metal drums. So basically, as you can see there, the edge of the shell is the bearing edge. just slight rounding off, top and bottom. The snare bed is sort of there. Ooh, there you go. Is there to there, so it's quite narrow, but it is noticeable. I don't know if you're gonna really. Let's see if we can get. I won't see this until later on because I can't tell from this angle. But if you look kind of my end of there, hopefully you'll be able to see the snare bed sitting there. And there you go. You can see how sort of the edge of the shell is as well. So like I said, I kind of call that a sort of straight wall design. It's something that I personally first saw on Rondinette's drums. Obviously there are other guys that use that same sort of principle as well now. So but like I said, it is 3mm thick, so it is a fairly sort of it's fairly thick shell, but at the same time it's also a fairly heavy drum. But then again, you have got quite a lot of metal work all the way around it, so that's that's going to take up a lot of the blame for that. But all in all, I think the only thing that is not exactly wrong with this as such is that there is a where is it? Oh yeah, so I think like the outer ply of the hoop there has slightly cracked. I mean, I have taken the hoop off, obviously, because I've changed the head. It's really more superficial than it is anything else, and it turned up like that. So I don't know if it's. I'd imagine that's probably just wear and tear over the years, because it's certainly not cracked over this sort of side of the hoop or anything. So but here's what it is. I think I mean a lot of people do sort of worry, and I tend to sometimes as well with the wood hoops. Now I've got, this is actually a third design wood hoop. I'm not going to take them off just to show you, but I've got drums with 3 different designs of wood hoops. So the first one is the Yamaha, the vintage hoop, the 19 ply maple, which is a sort of kind of like a square profile, very low profile as well. And I've never had any problems at all rim shotting those. They take it. I mean, they might get a little dented or worn down. I think it's probably nearer to it over time, but they're pretty solid and pretty good hoops. Now the second lot I've got is the Ayotte hoop, which is basically literally just a hoop. And it's very similar to this sort of one. So it's about what's that, about an inch high and probably about half an inch thick, but they are literally just hoops and nothing else. Now these hoops are slightly different in the fact that, I mean, they might not look different, but they are actually different just slightly, because on the inside you can't really tell that it's anything other than just a straight hoop, but on the inside, or I suppose outside underneath of the hoop, you can just catch there. There you go. You can sort of catch there the head of the hoop of the head is actually slightly recessed, and I mean that's kind of nice. I think it works all right, but so it's slightly different. And I think because this is, I don't know how many plies these hoops are. I mean, there's a good few. Anyway, I mean, I can see 1, 2, 3, 4. It's at least six ply hoops anyway. I personally, but because I don't hit that hard and because I don't use big and manly sticks like a 2B or bigger, I use little pencils. I don't really have a problem rim shotting this drum at all. I think that's partially because it's quite old anyway, and the hoops are quite old. And I think actually, I mean, these sit, what I said about the Ayotte, these actually sit probably just over half an inch, profile wise, they sit about half an inch over the the actual surface of the head. So I think maybe this, maybe I've not A-B'd them, but maybe this very slightly lower profile height wise than the Ayotte hoop. But As I said, I'm not really that bothered about rim shotting it. I think with this, I mean, the other interesting thing with this for me is that because it's a thicker shell drum, but it's got the wood hoops. It offers something, I suppose, tonally that's a little different to the other thicker shelled metal shells drums that I've got, you know, like the other 3mm and 5mm drums, in the fact that obviously wood hoops give you a slightly sort of more open and wider sound. So you know, to be honest, I'm still sort of dialing this drum in to where I kind of like it, but you know, it's kind of a work in progress, I think, for me. I mean, all in all, I can't remember if I've gigged this. I think I took it to. I think I actually used it on one gig. Largely uneventful because I don't remember much about it. So you know, we'll take that as a plus. But all in all, I mean, it's you know, I don't know. I'm kind of undecided at the moment. I mean, I do like it, but at the same time, I'm still not sure. I guess we'll find out. I mean, I've played around the tuning a lot. It's kind of like well, fairly high at the moment. So it's not terribly high. I mean, for me, it's not cranked or anything, but that's kind of, it's high enough at the moment. I mean, I'd say it was sort of a medium high rather than a sort of all-out high. But you know. But anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you find this one interesting. I know a few people have actually asked me about it, and you know, so you know, here it is. Let's find out how it sounds. I genuinely don't know how this is going to go. I'm going to sit here and do the playing bit in a second. I genuinely don't know how low this will go. I don't know how it's going to turn out. So we're going to find this one out together. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.